Thank you very much, Steve. Hi, everybody. I'm Art Pulaski with the California Labor Federation. As I got here and listened to Bob Reich speak, I looked to the crowd and I have to say that I was expecting to see mostly undergraduates. And the complexion of the crowd is such that it's a little different, a little more mixed than that, so I have quickly altered everything I had to say. So let me begin by saying that I want to kick off a couple of things that have been mentioned thus far as well. And the first thing is that I want to acknowledge what Stephanie just said, which is that policy making is only as good as the movements behind them. And I think that's so true, and I want to talk about the labor movement in particular, but I want to start by saying that I think that there are, hey Joe, how you doing? There are two, in terms of social and economic justice in the history of the United States, I believe that there have been two primary institutions that have been the primary movers of social and economic justice, that have been the institutions of church and the institution of the labor movement, primarily, in terms of long-term institutions. And I want to acknowledge up front that the labor movement has waned, and part of that is our own fault, and part of it is the business models and the policy inadequacies to allow people the opportunity to organize if they want to. I want to say that when labor movements began to collectively bargain, we saw that it was a significant shift from inequality toward equality, also as Stephanie said. And it impacts not just that particular workplace, but other workplaces. I want to give you one example, and that is, how many folks have ever shopped at Costco? Well, before Costco and Price Club merged, the Price Club was union and Costco was non-union. When they merged, you don't know, in most cases, which Costco store you're going into now is a union Costco or a non-union Costco. The old Costcos are still non-union. What was Price Club are union. So the Costco to the north of us in Richmond is non-union. The Price Club to the south of us in San Leandro is union. And what we find is they've got the same wages and benefits because the leadership of Costco have acknowledged that they're conforming the non-union Price Clubs or Costcos to the union wages because they don't want to give the workers in the non-union shops the opportunity to say, why don't we become a union? And so we have this institutional leverage against the ability to organize on the part of workers. There is a new business model, which is really not such a new business model, but it's becoming very prevalent. And it is that businesses are moving toward temporary workforces, contingent workforces, part-time workforces. There are many employers now that are actually hiring temporary agencies to be the employer of record instead of the particular company being the employer. That's one example of that is in warehouses. What we have found across California, particularly in the Central Valley areas of the state, is that massive, massive warehouses from corporations such as Walmart and Target to smaller warehouses as well. And if you go into one of those warehouses, you'll find they are temporary workers. In some cases, there are 4 or 5 temporary agencies that are the primary employers of record. And they give their employees different colored T-shirts. And so you'll have some folks on one side of the warehouse that have red T-shirts, some folks on the other side of the barn that have green T-shirts, blue T-shirts, et cetera. And the reality is they're all temporary workers. They're hired sometimes by the day. And they learn that if somebody in a red T-shirt talks to somebody in a blue T-shirt, they get fired. If they talk to somebody, even they talk to somebody who has filed a workers' compensation claim, they get fired. And there are no rules or laws protecting those particular people under these circumstances. So what we have learned from our collective bargaining experiences, more and more collective bargaining helps people in their work site, but it doesn't deal with the institutional challenges we have across the board because we have only now, in terms of the private sector, some 7% of the workforce organized. And so we moved from collective bargaining issues to how do we engage in public policy issues as well. Of course, that includes such things as minimum wage, living wage, workers' compensation protection, unemployment insurance, health care, protecting Social Security, all those issues. And I'm so proud and happy to say that the opinion of our members in the labor movement is when we fight for policy, we're fighting not just for our members, we're fighting for the entire workforce. Everybody, every working family, whether they're union members or not. And that's essential to our achieving, if you will, the American dream. And so we move into the policy arena where we're fighting in Sacramento and Washington on those policy changes to improve social and economic equity. We find then, of course, that we have the constraints of political power. And so we've moved toward into the political arena in large part for us to be able to move policy. That includes the Employee Free Choice Act, which was a federal policy that we tried to get last year, which gave people more of an equitable chance, opportunity to organize into a union if they so chose, because 3 minutes, got it. And so that's why we look at how we build political power as well as worksite power. Now, there are a number of issues in California I want to share with you that the only way we're going to have social equity is by creating more jobs and good jobs. So one of our goals is, how do we create good jobs? That's so crucial to where we're going on this. And I also want to share with you, by the way, that it was mentioned earlier, the right wing has had a narrative for some 25 plus years that was an anti-union, anti-Social Security, anti-government, anti-public sector narrative that's been very effective. And we have not had a counter-narrative for all those period of years. Now, the other side has spent literally, because we've tracked billions of dollars to make that happen, everywhere from the Fox network to Grover Norquist. We are now in California doing some research with a guy named Drew Weston to help us figure out what a narrative would be for social justice and economic justice. And we hope to have that pretty soon, where it'll be proposed by not just the labor movement, but our community allies and our allies in government as well. We need to create jobs. And in California, many have said, California is becoming a service sector industry state. But our point of view is you won't have a healthy economy until you have a diverse economy. So we are fighting for a new jobs program that will bring back manufacturing, bring back better mass transportation like high-speed rail, for example. And how do we recreate California's economy to be a new green economy that is a good wage, good job, full-time economy? And so those are some of the issues that we're facing in terms of how we move a progressive, strong economy that supports the needs of working families. But this problem we face at the moment and in the future, what I say to all of our unions, we have about 1,000 unions in California, that this new business model of temporary workforce across the board is happening in every sector, in every industry. It's happening in hotels, where they're contracting out hotel workforces to temporary agencies. It's happening in hospitals, where they're contracting out portions of the hospital to an outside temporary agency to hire the workers. It's happening in ground transportation. It's happening in air transportation. It's happening in almost every industry we can think of in California and across the country. And so we're working on policy changes, legislation that limits the ability of corporations just to hire temporary workforce. Because when you do, what happens? You don't have to pay as good a wage. You don't have to pay health care. You don't have to pay retirement. And finally, of course, you get away with not having a union that fights at the bargaining table for better full-time, better wages. And so part of this struggle now is against the new business model that we see every business wanting to do, which will add to the income inequality in California and the nation, rather than close the gap. And so we have policy struggles, we have political struggles. I brought with me, and I don't even know if this is legal here, but I'm going to do it anyway. And that is, it was mentioned earlier about the millionaire's tax. You have an opportunity to engage with the millionaire's tax because I have the petitions right here. We have to collect them in the next 3 weeks. And part of our policy is how do we engage in social equity by taxing the rich a little bit more than they are now. Not a lot more, but a little bit more, because they're not paying their fair share now. You have a chance to engage with us. That money is going to go to better education. And I think we all agree that that's an essential piece to improving the economy over the long run and keeping our workforce competitive. So I'm going to stop there and invite you to have a lot of questions on some of the stuff that we're talking about, and we'll engage more as we have a Q&A period. Thanks very much.